I'm Blake Berman. This is indeed The Hill on News Nation. So two different tones from President Trump today. For the first time since his worldwide tariffs, the president is now having to defend his economy. And a much different tone as well when asked about his government's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case.
She's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release.
What the president is also saying tonight about a meeting with the attorney general, plus a big statement about the Big Apple. President Trump saying he thinks Andrew Cuomo should try to take on the Democratic Socialist. We'll tell you why Zohran Mamdani is soon headed here to Washington. But are Trump's top two issues taking a turn? The numbers tonight showing where the president stands just 6 months from Inauguration Day. Also tonight, crying foul. America's pastime is about to celebrate its AllStar game here in a couple hours. So why is Major League Baseball back in Georgia just a few years after bashing that state's politics? What changed, if anything? But first tonight, here from The Hill, two very different tones today. The president on the defense now about his tariff policy and rising prices, while also being asked about the Jeffrey Epstein case. We begin tonight with our Kelly Meyer live at the White House. And Kelly, it was certainly different because when the president was asked about Epstein last week, he kind of tried to push the question off to the side. Today, he took it head on.
Yeah, a really interesting shift in tone, Blake, and we're seeing this trend not only from his stance on Putin, as well to how he's feeling about the Epstein files. And President Trump's base isn't letting this story go anytime soon. Today, I was on the South Lawn when President Trump took questions from reporters, and you could tell he shifted his tone when talking and taking on those specific questions from, as you said, snapping at that reporter just 1 week ago to more carefully responding today to even more questions about it. Here, he was asked if he agreed with his daughter-in-law, who says there should be transparency in the Epstein case. Take a listen.
The Attorney General's handled that very well. She's really done a very good job, and I think that when you look at it, you'll understand that. I would like to see that also, but I think the Attorney General, the credibility is very important, and you want credible evidence for something like that, and I think the Attorney General has handled it very well.
And Blake, the president's response isn't quelling the concerns on Capitol Hill. Missouri Republican Congressman Eric Burlinson telling our Joe Khalil that he is urging Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna to hold an Epstein hearing. He says he doesn't understand why the White House is acting like this. And Democratic California Congressman Ro Khanna telling our Joe Khalil exclusively that he's working on a new bipartisan Epstein bill that would require all of the files be released. Blake.
All right, our Kelly Meyer live tonight on the North Lawn. Kelly, thank you. With me now, Jesse Weber, News Nation legal contributor. Hello, sir.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
You too. Thanks for being here. So here's what I hope you can square for me, because I heard the president today there on the South Lawn, and he said, as it relates to Pam Bondi, he said, quote, "It's going to be up to her. What she thinks is credible, she should release." So I hear that from the president this afternoon. Here was Alan Dershowitz last night talking to Chris Cuomo, and then I want to connect the two.
Many of the things that are being suppressed by two judges in Manhattan. The judges have issued orders, which is why I can't disclose things I'd love to disclose, saying that you can't disclose this information. But Pam Bondi and the Justice Department and Donald Trump are not responsible for that. I don't know of any information that they could disclose that they haven't disclosed.
All right, so square all of that for me, Weber.
I think he's basically saying the right thing here, right? So a lot of this has already been released during the course of
Trump or Dershowitz?
I think Dershowitz is right. I think a lot of this has already been released during the course of litigation and during the course of the criminal case of Ghislaine Maxwell. What's being protected right now are the identities of these alleged victims and any material that might jeopardize them or embarrass them in any sort of way. So when you look at Pam Bondi not releasing information, of course, there's one side who'll say she's got a lot more that she could release. She said she had the list on her desk. There's a cover up. Or what really it could have been, everything that we heard up until last week was an over exaggeration and a misunderstanding misunderstanding of what this case was about, that there was no client list, that there was no piece of paper with everything there. It was a misunderstanding about what really was at stake. And remember, Ghislaine Maxwell, the case wasn't about that she was being processed, that she was sex trafficking people to all these different people. It was just to Jeffrey Epstein. So I'm curious. I think Dershowitz is right here.
So Ghislaine Maxwell, there was a question that was posed to the House Speaker Mike Johnson today, because there was a story yesterday, earlier this week in the Daily Mail, about the possibility of her testifying before Congress. Mike Johnson was asked about that. Here's part of his response.
I'm for transparency. We should put everything out there and let the people decide. Pam Bondi, I don't know, when she originally made the statement, I think she was talking about documents. As I understood it, they were on her desk. I don't know that she was specific about a list or whatever, but she needs to come forward and explain that to everybody. I like Pam. I mean, I think she's done a good job. We need the DOJ focusing on the major priorities. So let's get this thing resolved.
Mike Johnson on the Benny Show there earlier today. Are we going to see Maxwell testify before Congress at some point?
Probably unlikely. She could. And by the way, she's already been convicted. So the idea of her Fifth Amendment right. But what value would she have? Would she be a credible witness? And by the way, if she was willing to name names, why didn't she do that before she was prosecuted in 2021 to work out a favorable deal? So the question is, if she comes on the stand and she testifies in front of Congress, what exactly is the information that she would provide? How would you be able to verify it? And would it actually help her criminal appeal? She's making a lot of arguments that she shouldn't be prosecuted because of the non-prosecution agreement of Jeffrey Epstein. That's a credible argument. I haven't heard anything to suggest she has more information that could buy her some sort of favorable treatment. So I'm not sure she would actually want to do it or it actually would happen.
I have no doubt we will be talking to you soon. Jesse Weber, News Nation legal contributor with us tonight. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Of course.
All right, so the president today also having to defend his record on another issue, the economy. Really, if you think about it here, this was the first time today since the president announced those quote-unquote Liberation Day tariffs back in April where he had to defend rising prices. That's because inflation up 0.3% from May to June. And according to the Consumer Price Index report today, year over year, prices are 2.7% higher. You can see, obviously, they've come down, but a tick up there. It's now increased for 2 straight months, June and May, the 2 months that follow the April announcement. Now, prices went up on things like food and shelter, while gasoline and apparel prices were down. The president citing an increase in tariff revenue in his defense of the economy. Since January, $87 billion has been brought in, compared to basically $35 billion the same time last year. The bulk of it coming after Liberation Day. You can see the pickup there. Here's how the president framed his argument today.
There was very little inflation, as you know. The numbers were very good, very much inside the margin. So we've had no inflation. All we have is we're making a fortune. We are taking in hundreds of billions of dollars.
This all as the president headed to Pennsylvania today for a big economic announcement, more than $90 billion worth of private investment for artificial intelligence and energy. Another priority for the president as he touts the future, investments in AI and data centers. With me now, the Republican congressman from the state of Montana, Ryan Zinke, back with us once again here on the Hill. Nice to have you.
Great to be with you, Blake.
I'm going to start out of left field here, but it's become a big story in your party. There was a shift on the president's answer with Epstein. What can he do to satisfy the base?
You know, it's interesting because there was a court case, a judge ruled, and at the bottom line is I don't believe there's a secret list. I don't believe that there's this huge volume of information that is somehow they're going to indict anybody. I think that information more or less is protected by the court to make sure that innocent people or victims, you know, are not harassed, et cetera, et cetera. I think it would be helpful to explain all that. But I think Pam Bondi's done a great job. I mean, the Epstein, everyone's trying to find a nugget that doesn't exist. So I think she's done a great job. I support the president on this. It'd be helpful if they, as they sat down and explain it. You know, maybe
just go before the cameras and explain it.
And said, look, this is where the court is. This is where the judge is. This is the information is. They've already said there's no secret list in there. Not they find there's no, you know, there's not a huge issue there. But you know, again, there's a lot of people that believe that somehow there's all this information that's going to lead to somewhere. I don't think it exists.
The president had to defend the economy today. Congressman. Really the first time since April. Obviously, April 2nd to call it like the 10 days after or whatever, the week after, really. Stock market goes into correction territory. There's a lot of worries about tariff, but then markets up and to the right, and a lot of told you so, but prices now are increasing. And the administration's talking about, yes, we're collecting all these tariffs, but now we see prices going up. How do you not draw a straight line there?
Well, this is the three things that need to happen. One is the economy needs to feel better. It needs to feel better for you, for me, for the consumers. It needs to feel better.
Okay.
The secondly is the tariffs have to lead to trade deals. Having tariffs out there, and even though there's more income coming to the Treasury, there's a lot of pain with tariffs too. The tariffs have to lead to trade deals.
So, like when he announces Indonesia today, does that move the needle, or do Americans sit home and say,
it's going to have to be further. We're going to have to get a trade deal with the EU. We're going to have to get a trade deal with China. And that movement also will satisfy the last point: is the bond market has to stabilize and interest rates have to go down. If interest rates go down, then you know what? Your mortgage payments are going to go down. We'll be able to refinance. Your car payment is going to go down. I think of the three, interest rates have to go down, and the bond market doesn't lie. Yeah. The bond market looks at the reconciliation bill. It's stabilized, but in order for interest rates to go down, which affects everybody.
Yeah. Home loans, car loans.
We got to make sure that
payments.
tariffs then lead into trade deals and the prices stabilize.
You were the Interior Secretary in the first administration, and we are seeing now the president. I talk about this, I think, more than anyone on television, certainly at this hour, which is AI and data centers, rare earth minerals. We talk about this nonstop. I'm going to bring it up later in the show. The president today touting this $90 billion of investments in AI and data centers all across the country. How do you view that as all of that starts to get built out right now?
Well, the underlying fact is we don't have enough energy to power it. We're talking 1.2 gigawatts. I mean, enormous amount of power. And you look at where China is as far as new power and power availability in the U.S. U.S. has been flat too long. And data centers, AI, all this is a demand on our power grid, and we're going to have to reconstruct. We're going to have to do something like an FDR New Deal and at that scale to bring our energy resources to bear. That means probably nuclear power.
You're talking an FDR-like policy.
FDR, like a huge effort, and it has to be from the president. I mean, it has to be a reset on American energy because the demand for energy far outstrips what we presently have. I mean, we have to almost go double what we have in order to keep pace with the data centers, the AI, the demands for power and energy are too great. In China has went for, you look at where China is, I wish I had a graph. China is almost double what we are.
So if they come to you in the state of Montana and say, we're going to take that beautiful land of yours there and we're going to build, you good with it?
Well, the opportunity is micro-nuke with nuclear power and making sure that the supply chain is there. We're not going to power the nation on solar cells or wind farm. We can probably, the catch-up is do a lot better with natural gas as a bridge. But I think the great nirvana, if there is one out there, shore up our coal, shore up our natural gas, but invest in micro-nuke capability, modular nuke capability, and make sure we have a supply chain of feeder uranium all the way through. Thorium is probably a possibility. We have the resources in the U.S. We have lithium in the U.S., but we also have to make sure the permitting process allows us to use the power.
I got to leave it there. A man of many titles, as you see on the lapel there, also a former Navy SEAL as well. Congressman Ryan.
Pleasure.
Ziegler. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming in tonight. All right, still much more ahead here on the Hill. I think this is a huge story. Fair or foul? The Major League Baseball All-Star game in Georgia tonight, but not without a little bit of questions. Why is Major League Baseball back in Georgia tonight? Do you remember what they told us back in 2021? What changed? Plus, Empire's state of mind. Look who's back in the race for New York mayor, how the former governor, Andrew Cuomo, might shake things up, and what President Trump is saying about him tonight, and a one-way ticket to the swamp. New questions over who is ending up at Alligator Alcatraz. We'll be back here in 4 minutes, other side of the break. I'm Blake Berman. You are watching The Hill. See you then. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on News Nation. Tonight, crying foul. over to Atlanta, Georgia, where the first pitch in Major League Baseball's All-Star game less than 2 hours away. I want to take you back to 2021, though. Atlanta denied its turn at hosting the game. It's a big deal locally for fans and the local economy. It was denied after a fallout from the voter ID law that at the time, President Biden even compared to Jim Crow 2.0.
This is Jim Crow on steroids, what they're doing in Georgia and 40 other states. What it's all about. Imagine passing a law saying you cannot provide water or food for someone standing in a line to vote. Can't do that? Come on.
Now, the law required photo ID in order to vote absentee by mail, created drop box limitations, reduced early voting as well. Democrats and many athletes condemned the measure, including big names like Derek Jeter and LeBron James. And the MLB commissioner, Rob Manfred, ultimately moved the game to Colorado, saying, I have decided that the best way to demonstrate our values as a sport is by relocating this year's All-Star game. Now, despite the law, here's the thing in politics and sports. There's always a scorecard. Voter turnout in Georgia in the 2024 presidential election reached an all-time high, 68.3%. With me now is the Georgia State Senator Greg Dolezal. He is a representative in Forsyth County, that is northeast of Atlanta. Thanks for being with us tonight. So nothing's changed, Greg, since 2021 there in your home state. And I'm sitting there watching the All-Star game, the home run contest last night, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, I'm old enough to remember when Joe Biden said this was Jim Crow 2.0 and Major League Baseball said, see ya. Do you think you're owed an apology?
We are absolutely owed an apology from Joe Biden, from Stacey Abrams, from Raphael Warnock, from Senator Ossoff. We have seen record voter turnout since the passage of Senate Bill 202, which we said would do two things. It would make it easier to vote and hard to cheat. And the data that you just put on the screen shows that we were right and they were wrong.
What was the fallout there to Atlanta?
Man, thankfully our Braves made the World Series that year. So Poetic Justice had Major League Baseball back here that year for 3 home games when our Braves won the World Series.
All right.
But we wanted the All-Star game that year. We had, $150 million in our economy was lost due to a lie told by the President of the United States. It came from the highest level. He really invoked some of the most egregious, darkest days of this country and tried to besmirch the good work of our General Assembly. The irony, of course, is that Major League Baseball is based in New York, and we've had higher voter turnout in Georgia than New York. And that food law that he was talking about, the same law has been on the books in New York for 100 years.
Okay. I'm running out of time. I wish I had more. We got to leave it there. Greg Dolezal with us in Atlanta tonight. Enjoy watching the game. We'll talk again. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
With me now, Lindsay Granger, News Nation contributor. Lindsay, I'm sitting there on the couch. I'm watching the game, and watching the home run contest, and I'm like, wait a minute. Psych, just kidding? Like, nothing's changed. In fact, if anything, they've made the laws there a little bit more even stricter. And Major League Baseball's back.
And I saw in April there was recent laws that were passed. Like you said, stricter is very recently stricter. But when I think about a lot of the corporations that were virtue signaling around that time, you had Coca-Cola, right? You had the MLB. And the MLB, rightfully so, right? For 6 decades, they have excluded people of color out of their sport up until Jackie Robinson. Yeah. They have a history of trying to make up for it. And I think that moment in May 2020, after George Floyd died, we remember that there was a cry out from a lot of companies trying to do something. Right. And I think the MLB was trying to take that stance the same way that LeBron took that stance. But the fact that they're back there, it just says, well, different presidency, different feelings, because the voter laws have not changed at all.
So Dave Roberts, manager of the Dodgers, 2021, I think it's just being relentless with our voices. This is not just something that's an isolated moment in time. Headline USA Today, now Dave Roberts avoids controversy on why All-Star Game is back in Atlanta.
Well, I think the MLB tried something, right? The voter suppression is real. So, like, when you talk about the laws that have changed and how voter turnout went up, that's largely because of Stacey Abrams. She did a lot on the ground getting people registered and to vote. But we're talking about really small things. So if somebody has a hyphen in their name and it wasn't on their voter registration, when they go down to the polling place, they're not allowed to vote. And so that, to me, is something that is critical for these laws that are so particular that won't allow you with a hyphen to go place your vote.
Let me ask you this, though. Jim Crow 2.0, that was from the President of the United States. They had record turnout there in Georgia in 2024. Does he need to take that back?
I don't think so. I think,
You don't think so?
no,
Why not?
historically, we had guns, we had hoses, we had dogs. Now we have laws and legislation that can actually double down and do some of the work that those aggressive tactics used to do. And even though that Georgia did have a better turnout, we still understand that there are laws put in place to try to diminish what was accomplished in the past. And
But I hear you on virtue signaling from Major League Baseball, but then I also hear that from the president. That's why I'm trying to square it.
Yeah, I just think that the president was trying to do his job to stand firm in that moment. You have to remember how sensitive that time was. Again, like I'm telling you, painting the picture of COVID, George Floyd, and all the police brutality we were seeing, I think that they were trying to take a stance to say, well, if black people are disproportionately affected by these voting laws, then we need to stand up and say something right now based on our history of not doing the right thing.
Tonight in Georgia, it is play ball in about an hour and a half from now. Lindsay, hang around. We'll see you later in the show. All right, still to come tonight here on the Hill. Up the road there in the Big Apple, a big battle is brewing. Andrew Cuomo, Eric Adams, Zohran Mamdani, all running to become mayor. And President Trump weighing in today. I'll tell you what he said when the Hill returns.
I think Andrew would have a good shot of winning. He's got to run a tough campaign. He's running against the communists. I would think that he would have a good shot of winning.
All right, President Trump weighing in on the New York City mayoral race earlier today, telling the former governor Andrew Cuomo to go for it, despite losing the Democratic primary last month to the Democratic socialist Zohran Mamdani. Cuomo now joins the current mayor, Eric Adams, who's also running as an independent by launching a third-party bid. The November general election, give or take 4 months away, but this race has gained national attention given that a 33-year-old Democratic socialist, Mamdani, defeated a well-known former governor, with many wondering if this is just kind of a one-off, it's a New York thing, or if it's a sign of a shift in the Democratic Party. You know him. He's the man behind the numbers. Scott Trainer, data science director over at DDHQ. Hello, hello.
How's it going?
Trump says, Cuomo, go for it. This was a poll. You and I both did a double take. Like, I actually was like, what?
This whole New York City mayoral race double take. But yes, definitely this poll.
So the four-way, Cuomo and Mamdani, heads up, tied.
Yeah, look, 39-39. This is the poll, and there are going to be others out there, and they probably won't be as good for Cuomo. This is the poll that I'm convinced is the one that got him to say, hey, I want to be an independent bid. He put the pledge out there.
Okay.
I think this is movable because we don't know exactly who's going to turn out.
And so the pledge is?
The pledge is Cuomo wants everyone not named Mamdani to say, hey, if I'm not ahead or I'm not the front runner against him, we need to drop out.
Okay.
Now, it'll be interesting if they all agree, but...
Right, of course. So,
yeah.
And some of that, I guess you could say, is self-serving, right?
Yeah, it's a good press. I get it. I like it.
Let's show the heads up, though. Mamdani versus Cuomo +4. So I guess that's why you said you think it made him jump into the race.
Correct. Yeah. Now, let's look at the timeline. June 25, 26.
Okay.
If I'm Cuomo, I'm like, okay, this is good right off the gate. If I'm Mamdani, I'm saying, look, this is Cuomo +4, but now I'm running my campaign for the broader New York. So that's kind of where we're at.
Mamdani, favorables, when you look at the major name candidates, Mamdani, Cuomo, and of course the sitting mayor, Eric Adams. Whoa, look at this. Underwater, big time. Underwater, even more big time. +9, Trainer.
Yeah, look, let's start with the Eric Adams thing.
Okay.
He should not run.
Let me do some math. Minus 41 there.
I'm no longer a political consultant, but if you look at that, he's not going to have enough money to overcome that. It's New York knows who he is.
So,
they're not going to.
So forget the name ID, forget all that if you have those numbers.
That's not good.
Okay. Well,
Cuomo,
that's not good either.
Also not good.
Yeah.
But and look, we've seen candidates win with unfavorables just as bad as that. If you're Mamdani, you look at that and you're like, I'm sitting pretty good. That being said, he's got some policies that once they're out there, it's going to chip away.
Okay. You and I both love to look at Kalshi.
Yes.
And that's the betting markets.
Yeah.
I think it's like 10.1 million already
bet
on this race. And this is the up-to-date odds. Basically just who are you putting your money behind? Who do you think is going to win? And it's loud and clear at this point.
Yeah, look, the quote-unquote smart money thinks Mamdani. Here's what I will guarantee you. We're going to do this over the next couple months. That's going to go up and down. It's going to be a roller coaster. The smart traders are probably putting some money on Cuomo right now because they're saying, hey, underpriced.
Right. All right, we'll leave it there. Scott Trainer, data science director over at DDHQ. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, so as Mamdani prepares for the November general election, he met with more than 100 business executives today behind closed doors. And tomorrow, I don't know if he's going to take the Acela if he flies, however he gets down here. We'll find out. He will be here in Washington, D.C., attending a breakfast hosted by New York's Democratic Congresswoman and arguably his biggest backer, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The invitation is titled Communication and Organizing Skillshare. Mamdani says this is part of his way of giving New Yorkers what they want, a different kind of politics.
What we saw was New Yorkers' hunger for a new kind of politics, a politics focused on working people. I understand that it is difficult for the former governor to come to terms with that because it is a repudiation of the politics that he has practiced, that he has known for so many years.
Joining me now, Kurt Bardell, a Democratic strategist, News Nation contributor, and Mark Short, who is the chairman of Advancing American Freedom, former White House Director of Legislative Affairs, Chief of Staff to Mike Pence as well, with us tonight. Hello to you both. Thanks for being here. I had to chuckle a little bit, Mamdani trying to meet with Wall Street and business executives in New York because they're running for the hills. They are worried about him if he gets in. But then he's coming down here tomorrow as well to meet with AOC. What'd you make of those numbers that Traynor just ticked through?
I mean, if you're him, you're feeling pretty good. You're the only person that's in this race that actually has higher favorables and unfavorables. And like Scott said, Adams, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you are not going to win this race. And in fact, you're just going to end up splitting the vote with Cuomo, which really opens the door for Mamdani. And again, I would say, too, if he's going to be in D.C. tomorrow, he should drop on by the Hill Nation Summit and make some news.
And we'll be there. What's your side of the aisle going to do when there's the images of AOC and Mamdani together here in Washington?
Well, I think that, look, that's just what is candy for Republicans. You got two socialists out there basically advocating the government should take over the grocery stores in New York, that they should abolish NYPD. I mean, that's exactly where Republicans have painted a picture where the Democrat Party has gone, and they're walking right into that.
Here was President Trump earlier today when asked about that breakfast.
I'd love to be. I'd really love to go. I mean, I look forward to meeting them both. I know them both very well through what I read and through what I see. Look, he's a communist. I don't think our country is ready for a communist, but we're going to see.
All right, live pictures now. I'm told there he is, the President of the United States, returning from Pennsylvania. Right on cue. How about that? How much do you think he is going to try to elevate Mamdani, Mark?
I think all Republicans will. I don't think he'll just be the president. I think the Republicans view this an AOC Mamdani partnership.
Hold on one second. Do we have the president talking? We do. Hold on one second. President Trump live.
Everybody there, from Larry Fink to everybody else you can imagine. And it was a really great day and a very productive day. I think we're over now as a country, we're over $15 trillion of investment, and there's never been anything like that. In the history of our country, there has not been anything like it or even close. So, okay, do you have any questions?
Mr. President, you announced the Indonesia deal today. You announced the Indonesia trade deal today. How many more trade deals beyond the letters will you announce before August 1st?
We're working on probably 5 or 6. Of the 5 or 6, I'm not sure I really want to do them. You know, you want somebody that knows how to negotiate. But we'll probably have 2 or 3. You know, we insist on opening up the country, which is a big deal. Indonesia was great. He's a great president. And we made a terrific deal where they opened up the entire country to trade with the United States. We weren't allowed to go in and trade. I think something similar will happen with I would say, India. And we have a couple of others. But I have to tell you, for the most part, I'm very happy with the letters. You know, the letters are a deal. You know, I can't explain it any better. The letters are a deal. The press doesn't want to pick that up. But I will veer from those deals on occasion when somebody is willing. Like if Japan would open up their country, they don't do that. They just don't do that. And I don't either. I don't subscribe to it one way or the other. But they won't do that. So we might just stick with the letter. South Korea is inclined to maybe do that. So we'll let you know. But we have letters out. Every time I send out a letter, essentially that's a deal.
Mr. President, on your congratulations to the Nation Day of August 1st. with the date that you gave of August 1st.
Right.
Why stick with the date if you're saying that
payments start on August 1st. The only thing that's really sacred about August 1st is that's when payments start. So they have to start paying billions of dollars to you and people. Are you a citizen of the country?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. You'll be very happy because you're going to be getting a lot of money. Just like they found a budget surplus. We have a budget surplus of $25 billion. Everyone said, how did that happen? It hasn't happened in many years. It happened because of good management and tariffs.
Do you plan to release more details of the Vietnam China deal? Is there going to be a paperwork release to the public?
Well, I might. I don't think it matters how much you release of the deal. We have a Vietnam deal, and I would say that deal is being pretty well set. It's pretty well set. Again, that's an opening of their country. They've opened it up. Just so you know, these were closed countries. They were wonderful people, wonderful leaders, very strong, smart leaders. But their countries were closed to us, but our country wasn't closed to them. And so I said, you got to open up your country. So we're going to see. But the Vietnam deal, we may open it. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you. Is it necessary? No. Yeah, I don't think so.
Why did you settle on giving Putin another 50 days? It seems like he's had a lot of time.
I don't think it's a long time. I think really the question should be asked, why did Biden get us into that ridiculous war? Why did Biden bring us there? That should never, ever have happened, that war. This is Biden's war. I'm just trying to end it because we're saving a lot of lives.
Why do you think his opinion will change in 50 days when it hasn't over the last?
Oh, a lot of opinions change very rapidly. Might not be 50 days. Might be much sooner than 50 days.
To that end, when do you think the first Patriot missiles, some of these weapons that are allies
they're already being shipped.
From what countries?
They're coming in from Germany and then replaced by Germany, and in all cases, the United States gets paid back in full. So what's happening, as you know, is the European Union, if you look, mostly European Union stuff, but let's put it in the form of NATO. It's very similar. But NATO is going to pay us back for everything. In some cases, we're going to be paid back by countries of the European Union directly. But we're always getting our money back in full. So we're not going to have any more investment to make. We're getting our money back in full. And if we can make a deal, that'd be great. We're saving 5,000 or 6,000 soldiers a week. They're Russian and they're Ukrainian soldiers. They're not American soldiers. And we won't have boots on the ground. But it's a shame. 5,000. Last week they say 7,100 soldiers, both Russian and Ukraine, were killed.
Can I ask you about Iran? Have you seen any progress in talks with Iran? We haven't really heard about that in a while.
Well, they want to talk. I'm in no rush to talk. They would like to talk. I'm in no rush to talk because we obliterated their site. They'd have to start all over. In fact, it's obliterated to the point that it's not usable anymore. They'd have to pick a different mountain. That mountain is so blown up inside and so unstable that they would have to pick a different mountain. Our people really did the job. Yes, please.
On the fence, sir, would you fire Jerome Powell over the Treasury renovation?
Well, he spent $2.5 million building this place. I have to say this. I think he's terrible. I think he's a total stiff. But the one thing I didn't see him as a guy that needed a palace to live in. You talk to the guy, it's like talking to nothing. It's like talking to a chair. No personality, no high intelligence, no nothing. But the one thing I would have never guessed is that he would be spending $2.5 billion to build a little extension onto the Fed.
Is that a fireable
Nobody's
offense?
ever seen. I think it sort of is, because if you look at his testimony to the House and the Senate, you take a look at the testimony, it's under that whole thing is, he's not talking about the problem. It's a big problem. $2.5 billion, and that's $2.5 billion now. That's going to be a lot more money than $2.5 billion to expand. And with all of that, to house thousands of people to give him information, and yet out of the 71 economists, and they included me and one other person got it right. I got it right, and one other genius got it right. They had everybody else was wrong. 69 were wrong, and 2 were right. I was one of them. And I don't have a lot of people. I have Howard, I have Doug, I have a few people. He has thousands of people, and he got it wrong. No, I think when you spend $2.5 billion on really a renovation, I think it's pretty disgraceful.
President, have you spoken to President Putin since your announcement yesterday?
No, I have not.
Do you think when you speak to him on the phone, does he say that he wants peace?
Yeah,
What
he does.
What does he say?
He says he wants peace. He does. So far, it's all talk and no action. But you know, if you think about it, India, Pakistan, we did so many. The Congo, and I mean, look at the deals we've made. We made all these peace deals. Look at Rwanda. It was an impossible deal to make with the Congo. I made that. I made all of these deals, Serbia, Kosovo, and here's the one deal. And actually, Vladimir called me up. He said, I'd love to help you with respect to making a deal with a couple of them, like Iran. I'd love to help you. I say, Vladimir, I only want to help with one deal, Russia, because you're the only deal that we're not doing too well on. He oftentimes he said, no, he wants peace. And I think he does. I hope he does. We're going to find out soon. And it could be before the 50 days.
President, twice yesterday, when you were talking about this, you mentioned conversations you had with the First Lady after talking with President Putin. Has she influenced your thinking on this at all?
She's very smart. She's very neutral. She's very neutral in the sense. She's sort of like me. She'd like to see people stop dying. You know, people said, are you for one side or another? I'm for the side of people stopping dying. We have 5,000, 6,000, and 7,000 people a week, at least. And that doesn't include people from the cities and towns that are having rockets lobbed in there. I mean, people are dying in the cities and towns too, but we're talking about 7,100 in the last 8 days died. And I'm for stopping that.
On the Fed chair, sir, is Scott Besson, your Treasury Secretary, your number one option whenever Jerome Powell leaves? Or
well, he's an option, and he's very good. Well, he's not, because I like the job he's doing.
Right.
That's why he's not.
You couldn't do both, sir?
I like the job. I don't know if he was on the plane. Was he on the plane? I don't know. Maybe he wasn't. But I do like the job he's done.
Right.
So, in that sense, probably he's not that much of an option.
Right.
Scott's been great. He's been terrific. He did a good job today. He's a very soothing force. You know, it's soothing. All right.
Mr. President, the pharmaceuticals.
The pharmaceuticals will be tariffed probably at the end of the month. And we're going to start off with a low tariff and give the pharmaceutical companies a year or so to build. And then we're going to make it a very high tariff, because we got to move them in. Look, there's two ways you do it. You make money or you have them move here so they don't have to pay the tariff. Those are the two ways. The pharmaceutical companies are moving back to America where they should be.
Semiconductor, sir, is that in the same timeline? The semiconductor tariffs?
It's similar. Actually less complicated, but similar. Semiconductors and chips.
I know you've urged people to move on, but I'm curious, why do you think your supporters in particular have been so interested in the Epstein story?
I don't understand.
About how it's been handled?
I don't understand it. Why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is. I really don't. And the credible information's been given. Don't forget, we went through years of the Mueller witch hunt and all of the different things, the Steele dossier, which was all fake. All that information was fake. But I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going. I think, well, really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going. But credible information, let them give it. Anything that's credible, I would say, let them have it.
Mr. President, a question on AI. How do you want Americans to think about it? Are you concerned about job loss or privacy, or do you think this is the new technology?
Well, it's interesting because we need jobs. We need a lot of people to work. You know, we're going to be building very shortly hundreds of factories, including AI. We're building a lot of car factories. They're all coming in from other countries now in order to avoid paying the tariffs. And we need people working. So if AI can help us with that, that's a positive. Because we're not going to have enough workers to take care of it if we don't create something. So whether it's robots or whether it's AI, we need somebody to take care of. Do you agree with that?
I agree. So many jobs to build. I mean, think about $15 trillion. That's 5 million people working in these factories, building them great high-paying jobs in America that President Trump has brought back. So those jobs, of course, are in the wings. So let's go, let's train America, and let's get it going.
What do you say about that? What would you say about the job?
Well, I think with AI, as Howard and the president said, we're going to need more workers in this country because President Trump is the greatest economic developer that this country's ever had. It's brought back this record amount of foreign direct investment and a record amount of U.S. investment going back into job creation. But the mix is going to change. AI will take jobs away like software development because AI can write code, but AI can't wire a building, do plumbing. I mean, if kids go into the trades today, they're all going to be making 150 grand and they'll have amazing lives, build companies, start businesses. I mean, this is part of the boom of America because middle class, working Americans will never have had it as good. They have lower taxes, lower regulation, and more opportunities to go to work to build things.
We need people. We really need, because we're building so many factories in the country. And so AI can help with that. But what also is going to help are going to be robots. You know, the robots, I think, are going to be a big deal. And that's going to help also.
Russian sanctions, sir, on the secondary tariffs. Are you concerned that secondary tariffs on buyers of Russian oil will hurt American consumers, higher gas?
I don't think so. I think that whole thing is going to go away eventually. It should have gone away. And Putin does say, oh, I want peace, I want peace. But so far, he hasn't lived up to that. So I think it's going to go away. But we're going to find out soon. We're going to find out soon.
Can you give us more details on the sanctions? Is it 100% sanctions?
No, I don't want to do that. But they're very biting. They're very significant. And they're going to be very bad for the countries involved. I mean, they'll be very, very powerful and very bad for the countries involved. And I hope we don't have to pull that string. And maybe we won't. We'll see. Got to end. Got to stop the killing.
Are you frustrated today that the House wasn't able to move on that crypto legislation?
No, you know, the interesting thing is the 12 votes were votes where they wanted it to be stronger in terms of crypto people. I figured, oh, wow, that's sort of interesting because I was focused really on today's meeting, not that. But the interesting is the votes, those negative votes, were because they wanted it to be, and the safeguards, they wanted it to be stronger for people with Bitcoin or crypto. They wanted more strength, which is interesting.
What do you want to refine in the UK trade deal?
We have a little to discuss, but the deal is really very well done. But I'll meet with the Prime Minister. We have a good relationship. And I think it's going to be, and it'll be very shortly, and it'll be probably in Aberdeen, Scotland.
Mr. President, at the event, which state besides Texas would you like Republicans to gerrymander?
Say it again?
Which state besides Texas would you like Republicans to redraw the congressional
Well, there's about 4 of them. I'll let you figure that one out, but we have about 4 of them. In 3 cases, it's 1, and in 1 case, it's 2 or 3. And Texas would be 5.
Are you concerned California will turn around and do the same thing?
Well, we'll fight them. You know, they're so corrupt in California, you never know what's going to happen. But we've done pretty well in the courts in California, as you see. We're batting about 1,000, ultimately. We start off a little slow, and then we get a lot of hits.
Mr. President, you said today at the event in Pittsburgh that if it wasn't for Mr. Lutnick, Mr. Besson, who want to do more deals, that you would basically just go with the letters. You've said that a few different times. I just want to clarify. Do you just want to go with the tariffs and
No, I think they would like to make deals more than me. I'm satisfied with, but they would like to make deals more than me. I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm just saying, in my opinion, he and Scott and maybe even Doug to a certain extent, you're more like me, I think. But they would like to make deals more than me. I'm very happy with the deals the way they are. Those are very, right? Those are very simple deals. It's whatever the percentage is. And we base that on a lot of things, including the deficit and, you know, various things. And, you know, I think it's a much faster way. Don't forget, we'll be releasing a letter soon talking about many countries that are much smaller where you're not going to do letters per se. You might do an individual letter, but it's going to go very quickly. And the number will also be less.
Which countries are those?
These are countries that are, many of them, like 200 countries. You understand?
Caribbean countries, African countries. You have a huge amount of countries that are small, and the president's just going to deal with them sort of the way he thinks is the right way to deal with them.
We'll probably set one tariff for all of them.
Over 10%? Over 10% tariff?
Probably a little over 10%, yeah.
15?
We don't do a lot of business, but we do, it's still significant.
What about Israel, Mr. President? Is that related to your other Gaza negotiations? Is that tied up in other issues?
No, I think Israel's going to be fine. We had a great victory with Israel. That was a great, great victory. What we did with the B-2 bombers and all of that. And I never thought of it, but so many people are thanking me. They say no president had the guts to do it because, this has been going on for 25 years. In fact, when the pilots came to the Oval Office, they said, "Sir, we and our predecessors have been working on this attack for 25 years. Have a good time, everybody. Thank you, President. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we've been listening live there. President Trump, Joint Base Andrews, just down the road from us. Thanks for being back with us here on the Hill. I'm Blake Berman. The president making a little bit of news there, asked about a possible replacement for the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, and whether it could be his Treasury Secretary, Scott Besson. The president saying that it is an option, but maybe not necessarily because he likes the job that he is doing over at the Treasury Department. The president also asked about trade deals and that August 1st deadline, saying maybe there will be 5 or 6, but then winnowed that down, saying there probably will be 2 or 3. And then once again today, President Trump asked about Jeffrey Epstein and his administration's handling of the case. The president essentially putting that on Pam Bondi, the Attorney General's plate, saying if there is credible info, let them have it. A lot to digest here in the last few minutes here on The Hill. With me now, Bill Salmon, Senior Vice President of Editorial Content for The Hill and News Nation. Lindsay Granger, News Nation contributor. Emily Brooks is a congressional reporter for The Hill. And Mark Short, former Chief of Staff to Vice President Mike Pence. Thanks for sticking around. We listened to the president there for about 20 minutes or so. I want to start with you. You know the president well. What'd you key in on there? I ran through some of the headlines, but what'd you key in on?
I think that, one, the tariffs is going to continue to be the biggest agenda item here moving forward. And I think that the Fed issue is still one that's going to keep rattling markets. I think we continue to forget he actually appointed Jerome Powell.
Right.
And that was his pick, and primarily because Secretary Mnuchin said he'd be the one to keep rates lowest.
Am I right? Right. Am I right to key in on he sort of pushed aside the Besson option there a little bit, or not necessarily?
I think you're right. I think he did. But I think that you continue to see the administration pursuing this notion of extravagant refurbishing just because they're looking for a different angle to put pressure on him.
What'd you pick up on, Bill?
Well, he did say above Besson, not that much of an option. So
yeah.
I definitely picked up that was maybe not, it's one of those things, we love you where you're at.
Right.
You're too good where you're at. We can't move you. But I thought that he teed up a lot of topics that actually are going to probably tee up, if I may be so self-promotional.
There you go. Do it, Bill.
The Hill Nation Summit tomorrow, where we're going to have members of the Trump cabinet, of the White House advisors. We're going to have senators. We're going to have members of the House of Representatives. We're going to have the Speaker of the House of Representatives tomorrow to talk about a lot of these.
You're interviewing Mike Johnson tomorrow.
Yes, I am. And it was very interesting to see Mike Johnson sort of break from Trump today on that Epstein matter.
Yeah,
very
that was
interesting.
Fascinating, right?
Yes, and Mike Johnson saying that, Pam Bondi needs to explain herself more to people. And then very interesting to see just now President Trump's sort of shift in tone saying release any information that's credible. A lot of conservative activists, influencers, and members have been saying that the administration is hearing the anger from the base on this issue. And I think that maybe we're seeing that reflected from Trump, understanding that a little bit now.
What'd you take away from the last 20 minutes? Really, he spoke for like 40 minutes in total today.
He talked about it a lot. I think the response to Russia and the sanctions and what he thinks they're going to do, it just says, I don't know. But most importantly, people want to know about Epstein. He has to answer the question, can't keep dodging it. And I think that confusion about to why people care about this, well, your entire team promoted that you had something right on your desk for years. So.
Right. And it's a story. It was interesting because a week ago, the president really pushed back against that reporter in the cabinet meeting about Epstein. And then today he took the questions head on.
Well, it's almost like every day for the last 3 days, the administration has said simultaneously, it's boring, it's not a big story, yeah, maybe we could be a little more transparent. You saw it out of the president himself just then. You saw it out of Laura Trump the day before yesterday, and then you saw it out of Mike Johnson. So there's some movement here. It was just make this go away to an acknowledgement that, well, it sounds like they may want to put Pam Bondi out there in front of the cameras and just do
You think that happens?
a full.
Probably, but I mean, they lit the flame, so it's kind of hard to now put it out. I mean, the reality is they pushed so many different conspiracy theories about this, said that the file's on our desk, then said there's no file, and then said, actually, why do you want this file? Because it's created by a bunch of Democrats.
Bottom line is there is a whole lot to talk about in this town, and as Bill mentioned, and Emily will be there tomorrow, I will as well, the Hill Nation Summit. All throughout the day in this town, the biggest names in Washington, both sides of the aisle. It starts 9 o'clock Eastern. We hope you join us in some form, either some of it online or here on News Nation. And would you look at that? That guy there on the left of your screen will be interviewing Kristi Noem and Peter Navarro. I will bring you some of those highlights tomorrow here at 6 o'clock. I'm Blake Berman. I send it over to Elizabeth. Have a great night.